Commissioner, I would like to join colleagues in expressing our appreciation for the fact that you have been listening to various appeals made by us with regard to a number of issues, certainly with regard to the issue of whistleblowing. And your announcement that the Commission yesterday did take the decision to strengthen measures in this regard, I think, is a very welcome one. And now we need to act at a very fast pace on this matter. I, for one, would also make a link between the role of whistleblowers and, from the Malta experience, even investigative journalists, because whistleblowers can, through their action, even lead to the public becoming aware of various issues of interest. I noticed in the fact-finding sheet by the Commission that you refer to the uneven protection of whistleblowers across the European Union member states. I would say the Malta experience is perhaps even more particular because it's even uneven in the country itself. If a whistleblower talks about an issue which is pleasant to the government mantra, then that whistleblower is given protection and even rewarded through various standards and contracts. If the whistleblower, as was the case, for instance, of a person like Efimova, that now the Greek courts have agreed to give her protection and not even to extradite her to Malta, is issuing statements and is revealing facts, for instance, with regard to Pilatus Bank, with regard to money laundering, then that person is hardly given protection and is, in fact, at grave risk. So, and that leads me to another point, which your fact sheet refers to, the identification of authorities that would need to handle cases of whistleblowing. Those authorities, apart from having a reporting procedure, need to be independent. Because if the authorities that are granting the whistleblower status are whistleblowers that have a vested interest on whether to grant that protection or not, then the whole concept, in my opinion, is one which would be totally shattered. I read from today's Times of Malta that you will be in Malta by June. And that is welcome because your presence there can be perceived by the people as the European Union structures, the Parliament in particular, but certainly it is also time for the Commission to do this, to be the shield of people's rights, people's interests. And I understand you will be looking also into such issues as why the persons who have been responsible for the actual ordering of the commissioning of the assassination of the murdered journalist Daphne Caruana Galizia have not yet been brought to justice. So that, again, is for us a very, very important factor. I would like to think that all the measures are taken and as expeditious as possible, not only for the better protection of whistleblowers, but also with regard to the money laundering matters and the money laundering directive. I think and I believe that that is another issue that you will be discussing in Malta, because when one looks at the development of the directive, one sees even the relevance of that in the context of revelations that have been made, not least with regard to Pilatus Bank. So, thank you on all counts.
On the whistleblowers' proposal in relation to Malta, yes, I will come to Malta and I will have several topics to cover there. Anti-money laundering arrangements, strengthening the financial intelligence units, because recently we adopted the policy paper or the directive on the standards of financial intelligence units. They play extremely important role in anti-money laundering measures and functioning system. So I will ask about the concrete measures Malta is taking. I will ask about the European Public Prosecutor's Office. I will ask, of course, about where the investigation of the murder of Madame Caruana Galizia is. Of course, this is very tightly connected with what we are doing on whistleblowers and on protection of journalists. There are two different things, because journalists, according to the law in the EU, do not fall under the protection of whistleblowers. They have their own national arrangements, but our whistleblowers protection directive will help them, because this will encourage their sources to come and to inform them and to help their work, and also to not to leave the journalists alone with the case. There will be cooperators And I think that for the work of journalists, this will be very important also encouragement to get over the concerns, because I know this is not about journalists here, but you know that I also deal with hate speech online. We already have self-censorship in Europe. The journalists more and more share concerns that they might be endangered. There is a lot of blackmailing and very harsh messages through online, and I think that this is something where the member states have to focus on and be stronger in protection of journalists. But again, this is more on member state side than on the EU side. This is also the answer on what Mr. Cavada asked about the protection of journalists and the scope of the Whistleblowers Directive. Again, to Malta, we do not have any evidence to what extent the Maltese state could have possibly been involved in the concrete case, but we are pushing on having the results of all the investigations ongoing in Malta. And I still believe in independent investigation in Malta. And that's why I also want to come to the country and ask the relevant responsible people